And Tim, I think this one's going to be thrown out of court really fast. I don't think we're going to get much ongoing entertainment value from this one.
Alas, Lawrence, it's part of me wishes it would make it over some minimal hurdle so we could just enjoy the sort of carnivalesque slaying of all of his legal arguments and then see him put through discovery. But of course, it'll never get there because the suit is essentially the definition of frivolity. They just have no grounds for this. And I think they know this, obviously, as you pointed out. I don't think the goal of this lawsuit was to create new precedent around free speech. I don't think the goal of it was to mount a robust defense of the small fry in the internet era. This whole thing was meant to fire up Trump's base at yet another series of American institutions. It's meant to defray trust again in all of the forces in society that are trying to regulate Donald Trump. And it ignores all of the hurdles this legal team has to face in getting this suit anywhere into a courtroom that will even bother to listen to it. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act protects social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter right now from these sorts of lawsuits. Facebook and Twitter, in their own corporate bylaws, require any litigation from users to be adjudicated in California. These guys filed in Florida. A federal judge in Florida recently tossed a law that Governor DeSantis passed forbidding social media platforms from dumping politicians from their sites. There's just nothing on the ground here that is going to allow this to go forward. And the one curative thing that could come out of this would be for the courts to actually sanction the lawyers and sanction Trump, because he has had decades of there's actually a class of lawsuits like this known as SLAPP lawsuits that abuse the legal process and the judiciary to further non-judiciary goals.
Yeah, I mean, and you, in your lawsuit, you actually got to the discovery stage, which Donald Trump regretted greatly, because you were able to compel him through subpoenas to turn over tax returns to you and other information. And so that's the part of this that, of course, would destroy Donald Trump if these companies ever got to the discovery stage and they got to subpoena information from Donald Trump. But it has to survive a motion to dismiss in order to get to that stage. And it clearly won't. It's also a fundraiser for Donald Trump. He immediately went to work fundraising off of the lawsuit.
And if we were lucky enough to get to the discovery process, one of the things that would come out of this, because the reason he was kicked off of those social media platforms is that he incited an insurrection on January 6th. And the defense attorneys for all of these companies would have a field day probing any communication at the White House level or among Trump's political operatives, not only on January 6th, but in the months before, as they established a fact pattern around whether Trump did premeditate, in addition to fomenting the insurrection on January 6th. They will never want to get there. When we got into discovery on our lawsuit, Trump ended up trying to settle, and our attorneys rejected his efforts to settle the case, because at that point, we had our hands on his tax returns and his business records, and we're able to use those things to depose him. And nobody in this current lawsuit would ever want to get to that stage with him.
Yeah, and so at that point, Trump just dropped the lawsuit, which is what he would do here. I mean, what the audience has to understand, and I think many do, is that if you file a lawsuit against anyone, you have immediately made yourself available to be subpoenaed by the other side to testify under oath in a deposition whenever they want that to happen. And of course, Trump would have to avoid that at all costs in this case. So he would just drop his case when those subpoenas arrived.
If the court let him, in our case, the court didn't, the court ended up dismissing the case, but he still had to go through discovery. So he loses control of the process, and he ends up, as he always does, shooting himself in the foot with these kind of things, because he's jumped into it for the publicity value without thinking about the long-term consequences of this kind of legal buffoonery.